Welcome to day 9. My name is John. It's great to be with you, and we're on our journey, 40-day Lenten journey to the cross, readying our hearts for the significance of Easter. And so welcome. Today might be your first time that you're hanging out with me in this devotional series, or maybe you've been with me all 9 days. Keep sharing the word with your friends, family, coworkers. Today's devotional, I think there's at least one of you out there that you're going to feel like this is for you specifically. My guess is it's going to be for like many of us are going to say, oh my goodness, that devotional was for me. The reason is because life is hard, and you don't need me to tell you that. You know life is hard. And in fact, it's been said before that life is like a storm, and in life we experience all kinds of different storms. One person said it this way: you're either in a storm, just coming out of a storm, or about to enter a storm. And whoever said that, I'd say, I agree. And these storms of life, thankfully, the Bible is not silent on. In fact, the Bible speaks to quite a bit in so many different ways. The Bible speaks to the storms of life and what we can do when we have seemingly lost control, when things have become uncertain. The book of Psalms is one of the best places when you are trying to navigate a storm to spend your time in. Today, we're going to be in Psalm 16. Psalm 16, this is one of those places where those of us that are in a storm, man, what an incredible passage that I'm going to read to you today. Psalm 16, it says that, if you look at the heading of it, it says a miktam or a michtam of David. Now, I like to stay curious as I read the Bible, and I've been reading it a long time. I just noticed that when I was prepping for today. I'm like, wait, what? It usually says like a song of David. I'm like, what's this michtam or miktam of David thing all about? And it's actually an interesting thing. There's 6 psalms in all 150 that are these michtams or miktams of David. And looking into that, what I found interesting is all 6 of these kinds of psalms, Psalm 16 is one of the 6. The other is Psalm 56 through chapter 60. Those other 5 are the other kinds. The translators are not quite sure exactly what the word means. I found that interesting. They're like, we don't know exactly what that Hebrew word means, but what we do know is all 6 of these kinds of songs or psalms are when David was in the midst of crisis. He was in a storm. David, he understood the storm. He lived in and through storm after storm. You can read of this in the book of Psalms. In many ways, that captures David's life. He was either in a storm, just getting out of a storm, or about to enter a storm. And so today's reading is from someone that understood storms. And this is Psalm 16. And I would encourage you to read all of Psalm 16, but I want to focus in on just one verse of Psalm 16. It's verse 8. It's verse 8. This is what David writes. He says, I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. He's saying, I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. I want to ask you today this question. In the middle of the storm right now, are you controlling the controllables? Control the controllables is a phrase I'm sure you've heard of before, and I think it's really helpful when you're in a storm because you can feel as though you have no control over anything that's actually not true. Chances are you've lost control or influence over many things in a storm. And that's painful. That's difficult. That induces fear. But you actually do have control over one thing for sure. You don't have control over the outcome. You don't have control over how people are going to respond. You don't have control over many things, especially in a storm, but you do have control on what you are fixing your eyes on. And this is what David is saying. He's saying, okay, I am going to fix my eyes on the Lord. He's saying, with God at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Although everything around him is shaken, I will be unshaken. It's interesting. Externally, everything can be falling apart, and in David's life, it did, in some way, shape, or form. But he's saying internally, I will be unshaken. Why? He fixed his eyes on the Lord. You have control on that. You at least have control on that one thing, and I would argue that one thing is the main thing. It says in the New Testament, in one of my favorite passages in Hebrews chapter 12, that you and I would fix our eyes on the author and perfecter of our faith, speaking of Jesus. It said that he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and he sat down at the right hand of the Father. Jesus is our focal point. I want to encourage you today, storm dweller, to fix your eyes on Jesus. I want to encourage you today from Psalm 16 to control the controllables, and you do have control on what you will fix your eyes on. You're choosing to not fix your eyes on circumstances or on the reactions or behaviors or life of other people. No, you're fixing your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of your faith. This reminds me of one of the most famous storms in the Bible. It was a storm when Peter and the disciples were out there in the boat, 12 of them, and they looked out and they saw Jesus. And there was Jesus out there walking on the water. And I don't know when the last time you saw someone walking on the water, but they had never seen this before, and they were just stunned by it. They were even afraid by it. The storm was causing a lot of fear. But then all of a sudden they see what they think is Jesus out there walking on the water. And Peter says to Jesus, "Hey, Lord, if it's you, call to me, and I'll come to you." Jesus looks at them and he says, "Come." And of the 12, just one got out of the boat and began to walk on water, and that's Peter. And so Peter is walking on water in the midst of a storm. What he's doing in this moment is he's controlling the controllables, meaning he, in this moment, is fixing his eyes on Jesus. As long as he fixed his eyes on Jesus, he was okay. More than okay, he was actually walking on the water. And as he walked on the water, the story tells us that the wind and the waves started to pick up. I mean, it became more and more and more and more intense. And in that moment, he lost control of the one thing he had control of. He began to look and notice the wind, and he began to be influenced by the waves. His head began to move around. Now he was no longer focused on Jesus. No, in this moment, he became unfocused. He was more focused on the circumstances around him. What an opportunity for you and I today. If you feel like you're sinking, and I know that feeling quite well, maybe we've started to focus on the wind and the waves. When we feel as though we're sinking, maybe it's because we are making the conscious choice to lose control of maybe the one thing we have control on, that is who we are focusing on. One of my favorite hymns speaks to this. I would sing it for you, but we're not mic'd up for me singing. But it talks about turning our eyes to Jesus, to look full in his wonderful face. And when we do that, the hymn says, the things of this world will grow strangely dim. That includes storms. That includes disappointment. That includes being misunderstood. That includes heartbreak. That when you and I fix our eyes on Jesus, the things of this world, including the storms of life, they will become strangely dim. We're choosing to not focus on the wind or on the waves. We're focusing on the one who is sovereign over it all. He is King Jesus. Let me read to you again Psalm 16, such an incredible song. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. What an incredible testimony you and I could have. Giving our lives to Jesus, following him, being disciples of Jesus who are making disciples of Jesus. That people get close to our life, they will see that our circumstances are very shaken. Because in this world, you will have trouble. But as they get even closer to our lives, they will say, how in the world, even though everything around them has been shaken, they're unshaken. And in that moment, we'll have an opportunity to say it's because of who we decided to keep our eyes on. His name is Jesus. My hope and my prayer is that you would keep your eyes on him. Are you controlling the controllables in the midst of a storm? You do have control over who your focus will be on. May today you and I choose to make our focus Jesus. We love you guys, and we love being able to spend this time with you. Share this devotional with someone that you think this could help, someone that's going through a storm right now. We'll see you guys very soon. Have a great rest of your day.